Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office Show. As promised, we are live here to help celebrate 10,000 subscribers. We wanted to thank all of you guys. So we're going to do a little Q&A here. We're going to be taking all of your questions and comments. So if you're coming in from the NBA Front Office YouTube channel, thank you. You might also be joining us from, you could be coming in from my Twitter account. You could be coming out in from Facebook. I know Keith is going to be retweeting this as well from his account. So if you're coming in from one of those social channels, welcome in as well. We'll be taking all of your questions and comments. And if you haven't subscribed yet, great opportunity to do it. Even if you didn't get in that first 10,000, still great chance to go ahead and subscribe, turn on those notifications so you get notified. And, you know, we were pretty fortunate that we actually have an NBA move to talk about here with the Lakers making a trade, trading out Marc Gasol, which is actually something we discussed yesterday, and it went down pretty much how we said it was going to. Not to, pat ourselves on the back too much or anything. But Keith, before we even get into that, 10,000 subscribers, how awesome is that?
It's incredible. I think this is amazing, the support we've gotten here on the show to this point, and how much everybody is out there, all the kind comments that people leave on the videos and things like that. This is great, guys. So thank you for all of it. We're doing this for you guys, mostly because it's we love bringing you guys content and getting in all your topics and those kind of things. And I personally appreciate that Trevor and all the rest of y'all let me nerd out a little bit on the cap stuff on occasion. So I appreciate all that. And this Marc Gasol trade was a little bit cap nerdy. So I'm pretty psyched.
Well, yeah, I mean, so the trade breaks down like this. And we're going to be taking, this is going to be like an AMA. We're going to take all your questions and comments. I've already got a few topics we're going to get into that we've seen popping up specifically in our questions, but let's start off with this whole Marc Gasol thing. So the Lakers send Marc Gasol plus a 2024 second round pick, and I do have some comments on that in just a bit here, and cash to the Memphis Grizzlies in exchange for Wang Zealand, who will not play for the Lakers at any point. He was drafted in the second round in 2016. Is really only in the trade because you have to send something. You have to get something in a trade. You can't just send stuff and get nothing in return, according to NBA rules. So this is kind of like a top 55 protected second rounder. It's just the draft rights to a player rather than that. But basically, the Lakers are trading away Marc Gasol and getting nothing in return, which, again, Keith, we mentioned this, I believe it was yesterday. We've talked about how I had some Lakers fans messaging me saying, oh, what could the Lakers get from Marc Gasol? Nothing. They're not going to try to get anything for him in terms of an actual return, like draft picks or anything like that. What they're actually getting here is savings and a roster spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's a lot of savings. It was about 10 million in tax savings just because of the progressive penalties. The further you go over the tax, the more your bill becomes. So that's a pretty big deal for the Lakers. I guess it's probably 9-10 million in savings, somewhere in between there. They create a very small trade exception that'll probably go unused. That's for the amount of Gasol's salary. I mentioned in our last show, because he was on a minimum exception deal, he could be traded for no salary coming back, and that's exactly what the Lakers wanted to do. And as you mentioned, they open up a roster spot as well. I don't know, have we had it confirmed yet on that 2024 pick? If it's the Lakers pick, or they also own the least favorable of Washington and Memphis's own pick, which is kind of weird. So maybe they just returned it back to Memphis.
They might have. I don't know. I haven't seen for sure on that one, but this actually connects really well to the Russell Westbrook trade. When we talked all about, we broke down how the Lakers were able to use a little bit of leverage in terms of the Nets getting involved in the deal and use that to get an extra second round pick out of the Washington Wizards. So they got 3 seconds in the Russell Westbrook trade. This is why that matters. And this is actually a very similar scenario to what I described at the time when I broke this down for Lakers fans. I said, look, second round picks, I know we look at them and we scoff and we just go, oh, those are nothing, right? But what second round picks are really in the NBA is currency. They're how you pay teams in order to get stuff done. And in this case, you're clearing a player off the books. I didn't think it was going to happen quite this quickly, that they were going to use a second rounder as payment to clear Gasol's salary off the books. I wasn't projecting that back then, but that is exactly how they used a second rounder here, is as currency, as payment. They also used, well, literal cash as payment as well. But the second rounder acted as currency in this situation in order to get the Grizzlies to take on Gasol's salary.
Yeah, the draft rights to the player coming back, Wang Jielin, he's actually not bad.
No.
As far as his numbers over in the CBA, he's been playing over there for several years now. I want to say 9 years, and he's only 27, but he's never going to come to the NBA at this point. It's very unexpected. He's a 7-foot center, but 2 seasons ago averaged 26 points per game. Now, that comes with the qualifier of Trevor, myself, probably most of you watching here on YouTube live or listening to the podcast later could probably go for somewhere between 8 to 10 points per game in the CBA. It's not hard to score points in China, but he blocks some shots. He can rebound a little bit. So would have been a much more interesting prospect if he was maybe 5 years younger. You might have been able to say, maybe he'll come over, but that just seems unlikely at this point that he will ever come to the NBA. But as Trevor noted before, you have to give up something in a trade, whether that be a top 55 protected pick or draft rights or the minimum amount of cash and those kind of things. So this is a chance for the Grizzlies move off draft rights. And now the Lakers have this draft rights to the player here, Wang Jielin, to move if they want to later down the line, if that was something that they ever really wanted to do. But likely he'll just sit there and eternity on the Lakers books as draft rights and never become anything more than that.
Now, I do want to say the number that's been floated out there, between 9 to 10 million in savings for the Lakers, it's a little bit incorrect, isn't it? Because they have to sign somebody else. They only have 13 guaranteed contracts right now. They have to pick up a fourth. They have to replace Marc Gasol, and they're going to sign another veteran minimum at some point. Now, so that some of that money is going to get replaced. So it's not like they just instantly free up 10 million. Like, they're going to have to turn around and spend some of it here.
Yeah, what will happen there is they will sign that player for the 1.7 amount, which is roughly half the roster accounts for right now with all their veteran minimum signings. And then, so that's $1 million less than what Gasol counted for. I think this maybe, I'd have to run the actual math. I've not had a chance yet, but this might have knocked them down one tax bracket. And if that did, that's huge too. So yeah, so they'll replace some of it. So probably in the end, this will probably end up saving 4 to let's say 3-4 million in total is probably what the real savings will be on this, but that's still not nothing. That's a good chunk of money. We know, right? The Lakers hurt. They applied for the PPP loan or whatever it was, and all that stuff. They're such a hurting franchise for money and support out there in the world. So I'm just picking on them, but no, I mean this is the kind of move you make. Rather, because a lot of people I've seen, why didn't they just cut him? Because that doesn't save you 10 million. He sits on the money as sits on the books rather as dead money. Right. So so you don't just cut him. You make this trade and go. One other note here too. My thinking of order of operations for the Grizzlies side of this trade. They will make this trade sometime within the next few days. I imagine that this will actually happen, that they're sitting on an open roster spot right now. Remember, 20 players in the offseason you can carry up to. So they will make that trade. And then the trade that they're going to make with the Boston Celtics for Juancho Hernan-Gomez for Chris Dunn and Carson Edwards, that trade will get made sometime on or around September 15th. That trade can't happen until then because Boston can't aggregate Chris Dunn's salary until September 15th. So order of operations will be this trade will happen fairly soon, and then they'll move on to the to the next trade from the Memphis side.
And that makes sense. And then Memphis is still in a situation where they've got to cut some people in order to get down to 15. Come what is I don't know it off the top of my head. What is the deadline to cut the roster down to 15?
A couple days ahead of the regular season start date. Yeah, it's usually like that Friday or Saturday before. It might even be a couple days after that.
So I guess, there's a lot of people on here that are mentioning, a lot of people in our chat right now that are saying James Ennis would be a great fit for the Lakers. James Ennis, if you're not aware, Keith, has been going around anytime there's been anything on social media linking him to the Lakers. He's been liking it. And so people are, in a frenzy because of that. In my mind, whether it's James Ennis or somebody else, I could see if the Lakers have somebody that they are already set, okay, this is the player we're going to bring in. From the Lakers' perspective, saving 4 to 6 million, bringing in a guy you think might be able to help, even if it's just kind of an end of the bench role, that's probably worth, when you add those two things up, that's probably worth parting with that second round pick and whatever cash you had to throw into the deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially too. Gasol looked pretty done.
Yeah.
In the Olympics. So, yeah. Now it's funny because as much as I didn't fully understand the DeAndre Jordan signing, now with Gasol gone,
It makes
they
more sense.
could use another big. Just Dwight Howard hasn't always been the most healthy guy late in his career. Jordan, how much you're going to push him to play? Could you want somebody else? And there's a couple good options out there. If they really wanted to go that route, they could go with DeMarcus Cousins and run that back. Bismack Biyombo. If we're talking third bigs here, so nobody you should get super excited about. Or even like a guy like Ed Davis, former Laker. I believe, right? He was a Laker,
if I remember right.
At one point in time. Yeah,
you are correct.
You could run him back if you want to go with a much younger option, Reggie Perry, who was on a two-way with the Knicks last year. You could even now do something. That guy who's like a 4 or 5, like Jordan Bell, if you want to do a little bit younger of a player there. But my guess is they'll sit on that for a little bit, kind of let that develop, see what the need is. I don't think they're going to fill that 15th standard roster spot anytime soon. My guess is that goes for a while, and they fill this 14th spot with. I'm guessing it's probably going to be James Ennis, because I'm not sure where the heck else he's going to go at this point. You might as well sign on with the Lakers and have a chance of playing a role. But if they wanted to go with a little bit more of a defensive true guard, you could go with a guy like Avery Bradley, too, who's still out there and run that back. I don't want anybody to get mad and start firebombing the chat, so I won't mention re-signing Wesley Matthews. So we'll just move on.
A lot of Lakers fans still like Wes and liked him as a person and all that, but yes, there's some options out there for them to look at. So we'll see. There's another move coming. I think that's the bottom line. There's another move coming, and there has to
absolutely.
be. They have to have 14. And right now they have 13. So, and the other thing,
now the 14, that just to be clear too, that doesn't start until the regular season starts, because they can run with their guys, because they're past the number where they need to be right now, just to have the Mac McClung, and then who's the other guy that's on the camp deal? Chaundi Brown. Yeah. So that is that's where they're covered for now. But they're gonna go into camp. My guess is with the full 20. If for no other reason, with that many veterans, you don't want these guys overworked in training camp. You're going to let guys have liberal rest days over the month or so of training camp as we go. And then, of course, we know that they're going to be out there on opening night, so they'll get started right away, with everybody else. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's they get to the full 20, but I think when the opening night roster is set, it'll be 14 standard guys, one open standard spot, and two-way players, and then they'll use that standard spot as it goes throughout the remainder of the offseason, or season rather.
And like we mentioned, because they're so far over the luxury tax, there's actually huge savings by not filling that 15th roster spot now, because you're operating under the assumption that they're going to sign somebody off the buyout market midway through the season. And so if that's the plan all along, and you're going to sign somebody now and then have to waive that player once the buyout market heats up, and you're still going to pay them, so you're paying that player the minimum salary, plus you're paying the luxury taxes on that, then you waive that player and sign someone else, and then you're paying them the prorated minimum for the remainder of the season, plus the luxury tax on that. It adds up to a ton. So financially, it makes no sense to fill that 15th roster spot right now.
No. Actually, you know what? I forgot a big that would make a lot of sense for them. Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yes, that's a name that's come up quite a bit.
Younger guy, can actually shoot a little bit with range, which none of their other bigs do. I'm obviously not discounting Anthony Davis. It's just I'm thinking more of pure centers, guys who are going to play center on a regular basis. So I know Anthony Davis can shoot. Let's not get crazy here. So let's see where it goes.
All right. Well, I do want to get into the questions and comments, and this is what
Yeah,
this
let's
show
do it.
is all about. But I guess first and foremost, so I've got Marcus Steven from YouTube says, watching from Barbados, great show, keep up the good work, great show. And I just wanted to
Hey.
mention that it's just so cool when we do this. When we do the Lakers Nation live show, I get people coming in from all over the world. Here we've got somebody coming in from Barbados. Somebody earlier in the chat mentioned they're coming in from Australia. I just love that aspect of this, that we get people
We had a
from
guy in
all
the
over the
comments
place.
from South Africa, which was really
That's
cool. He
right.
said he listens to us on his way to work. He has a long drive to work, so he appreciates the long shows. So somebody appreciates him, Trevor.
That's right. That's right. So it's very cool to see that kind of thing happening where we're getting people from all over the world. Um,
Yeah, love it.
let's do this. So I had somebody who mentioned Keith needs to get some Celtics swag in the background. That's Smiley Jogger from YouTube. So is that because so my plan at some point, so I set up this studio and everything here, but my plan at some point was to create a separate station for NBA front office, right? And have a different background than
Nice.
what I have for Lakers. And I just have to just actually do it, find the time to just do it and get it all set up. So that was my plan. But in the meantime, I've got all my Lakers stuff, and I don't want to take all that stuff down every time we do front office.
No,
But
you
should
should.
we balance? Do you need to balance that out with something?
So here's the thing. Well, you can't see like over in this direction, behind like where my camera is. That's where my wife's desk is. We share an office here in our house, and I'm not sure that she wants to stare at a whole ton of Celtics stuff on the walls. And I don't have like a lot of nice Celtics stuff. What I can do though is I'll get a picture put up, just behind me on this side, or on this side actually, on my left side. I have a picture of the 2008 starting five team, so I'll get that hung on the wall. So at least have a little bit of Celtics representation for that. Maybe I can drape like a shirt or something over the chair that's in the background or
There you
something
go.
like that.
There you go. And I've got, now that we've mentioned, I've got people saying coming in from Trinidad, Madagascar, somebody coming in from
Amazing.
Austin, Texas. Very, very international there. All over the place. We've got people joining. Oh, somebody said
I
Spain
love it.
here. Well, say hi to Mark. That is where he is,
Yeah.
according to all the reports, and he's going to be staying in Spain. But Keith, that's one of the questions that I get the most, or one of the comments that I get the most about our show, is that how is it that a Lakers fan and a Celtics fan have combined on a show and we haven't killed each other?
Yeah, it's what's funny is I was thinking about that because I think people think there's got to be some amazingly cool story on this. I don't know that it's really all that great. But we were Trevor and I were both several years ago now. We're
Hmm.
both working for the same group. In a sense, you were with them through Lakers Nation.
Through
I
the
was doing
podcast.
stuff for Celtics blog through them, as well as the podcast. And the first time we ever met was at it really kind of turned into a Celtics blog Lakers Nation dinner at
That's right.
Las Vegas Summer League, and it was. Just so everybody knows too, it was really kind of funny. It was all Celtics blog people on one side of the table and all Lakers Nation people on the other side of the table,
And
which
it
was
did not end
which was
in
pretty
bloodshed
funny.
somehow.
No, it did not. No, it was actually a very nice
It
dinner.
was.
A lot. I think you and me might be the only two people left working for either outlet from that dinner. I think everybody else has moved
There's
on.
some Lakers
Maybe
Nation people that are still around.
is there?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. I know there's nobody left. From the Celtics blog side
Hmm.
except for me. But yeah, we had a great dinner, and then I would say it was probably what was it? It was a year or two after that.
Yeah.
Front office show, which I had running for a while, and it had stopped. We Trevor hit me up and said, "Hey, you want to restart that?" And I was all for it as long as he wanted to do all the hard work. Because I don't want to do that part. I just want to talk, as I do quite a bit. And then we got it going, and there's been some fits and starts, but
Hmm.
now we're finally in a good place. I don't have any problem giving a little peek behind the curtain. These things are hard to do
Yeah.
if it's not worth our while, and that can be kind of tricky, for us. So yeah, so we're happy now to have the support and have the right people backing us and getting us going. So we're thrilled to be here doing this on a very regular basis, and we've got some pretty cool stuff planned. I think
Right.
for this coming season. I don't. Do we want to talk about that today as a celebration of our thing, or we
Yeah,
want to wait?
we can definitely get into that. I think that's
Okay.
certainly something that
Yeah.
we can talk a bit about. But yeah, I mean, basically the story of how this all started, Keith is absolutely right. In fact, I was trying to remember in preparation for this, and maybe you know this. Were you on the podcast before we ever met in person? 'Cause
I think I
I know
was.
I had you on the Lakers Nation podcast pretty early in its existence, and I know you were the guest
Yeah.
for the 100th episode, and we had a bunch of cap stuff to break down.
Yes.
I have no idea what episode we're on now on the Lakers Nation podcast. That was like 4 years ago.
Much more than 100.
Yes,
Yeah.
much more than 100. But yeah, that was we. So we had talked a little bit before
I
just
think I
on the
started
podcast.
coming on the season before they got LeBron,
That
if I
sounds right.
remember right.
Yeah,
Because I remember we were talking, how do they manufacture enough cap space to go get LeBron, and that's
right.
where we spent a lot of time talking about waving and stretching Luol Deng,
That's
which ultimately was what
who
happened
is still on the books.
back then. But yeah, I do think I do think I had done the show with you guys, and I had done oh gosh, this is gonna kill me because I can't remember her name now. She went on to work for the Trailblazers and the 76ers.
Serena Winters.
Um, Serena Winters,
Yes.
yes, and I apologize for forgetting her name, but I remember doing a show with her
Yeah.
at one point too, all about that, and that was that was when I was not very regularly doing on camera stuff, and I had a really horrible laptop camera, and it was bad. So that's probably the one and only time I was on because of that. Is my guess, but
I didn't know you had done that with Serena. That was news.
yeah, I don't. It was her and a couple other people. It was like a round table, like
Right.
firing cap questions at me.
I
So,
remember she had done a
which
couple
is
things
good. I
there.
love that.
But
Yeah.
in any event, here we are now, running running the front
Your
office show.
Boston
And
LA partnership gives
that's
me hope for the future of humanity. That
that's
is fantastic.
that's right. When we, you know what, like, of course the Lakers and Celtics have this rivalry and everything, but it's funny, like fans just assume that there's just all this animosity when reality is like if we and I was thinking about this earlier today too. Like if I step back and think, okay, I was born in Southern California, that's why I'm a Lakers fan, right? Like that's if I was born somewhere else, I'd probably be a fan of a different team. A lot of it is just so much is this is where the way you grew up. My dad, huge Lakers fan, right? So I grew up in a household that supported the Lakers, and so that grew from there. So
Yep.
when I look at things, I'm not going to fault somebody for being a fan of another team or whatever. And I know there's a lot of trash talk and stuff online, and people get super passionate about it and everything. I try not to worry about that stuff too much because again, we have our passions, and that's what makes sports great. That's what makes fandom great.
Yeah.
Sometimes it goes too far, but it also makes it a lot of fun when people are just invested and involved and bought in, and
Yep.
it's a great thing.
Yeah. Keep it respectful. Sports hate is fine as long as it stays sports hate and
Hmm.
respectful. It's what when you get personal and we get a little crazy, that's when neither one of us likes it. And one thing I know we passionately agree on is we both agree that the tiebreaker for the championships, we would like it if it was Boston versus LA to
For
break
sure.
that tie in the finals, and that's quite frankly that's how we feel it should be. So the 28 other fan bases are like, hit the road with that nonsense. No one
Yeah,
cares
right.
about your foolish championships. So, but yeah, so we want to start pulling questions here from
Yeah,
the various places.
let me see. So I've got a lot of comments coming in. Um, I've got people saying you guys are doing a great job, which is fantastic. I've
Appreciate
got
that.
some people asking about the Lakers Nation show, asking about my old co-host Jas. He had other opportunities to go do other stuff. So I know people who first started tuning into our live post-game show a few years ago. First of all, thank you guys for watching for the last few years being with us. But no, he got opportunities to go elsewhere. He had other job opportunities, and so he went with some of those. In fact, I think he just started something new. I still talk to him a few times a year. We'll message back and forth a little bit. He's still a great dude, but yeah, he just moved on to some other opportunities. Okay, here's a good question here. Some Paul Perinello said, Keith, so coming from the Lakers, from a Celtics fan perspective, who will be the Lakers starting five?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, we know Davis and James. That's easy. Part of it, and Russ. So those three are locked in, and then of course I'm going full health here.
Right.
I will say I think that fifth starting spot probably at least initially goes to Wayne Ellington as the veteran shooter there. It's got to be a shooter, so
Okay.
it's either going to be him or Malik Monk. And I don't think they want to go too big and force James or Trevor, like a guy like Trevor Ariza, to chase guys around the perimeter. I don't think it'll be Kent Bazemore. And then the starting five spot, Jordan or Howard, toss a coin. Probably one of the two of them. And then I think what's more interesting, quite honestly, is what their closing five will be. And I assume that'll be Davis, James, Westbrook, Carmelo if they need offense, Ariza if they need defense, and then one of the shooters. My guess is either probably, again, Ellington, Monk, maybe Horton Tucker if they need a little more playmaking out there. But that, yeah, I don't know. I'll say Dwight just because he's been there before. Over Jordan for that fifth starting spot in the center spot, but I don't feel great about that.
That's been a big debate among Lakers Nation, has been who's going to be the starting two. Is it going to be, and I've been leaning more towards Bazemore because Frank Vogel's such a defense first coach, but then we had Dave McMenamin of ESPN throw out what you said, that Wayne Ellington could potentially get that job because of his shooting ability. So I think it's going to be a camp battle, and we're gonna have to wait to find out. But it's kind of nice to not have all that locked in and get to discuss that kind of stuff and think, okay, well, maybe it could be this guy, maybe it could be that guy, and go through all the different permutations that we could see in that starting five.
And I think they did a good job building in some versatility of the way they can play. And a lot of that is born out of Davis and James can both slide up a position to the 4 and the 5 respectively. And that's huge because that allows you to do a lot of different things with them. And then when you have a LeBron James who can run your entire offense through him, and he can play. I mean, he could play small ball 5 now at this point in his career against most of the other 5s and would have no issue with it. He won't because they don't need him to, but that just unlocks a lot of different things that you can go to. Well, it's kind of funny, and Trevor knows this if you're new to it here. I say it all the time. I don't think we're going to see all that many games where Davis, James, and Westbrook play together in the regular season. I've set a pretty low over-under on that. I forget what I put it at now, but I'm thinking it's somewhere under 60 games total. It wouldn't even be surprised if it's even lower than that, just because they're not going to push those guys to play a ton of games in the regular season, nor should they.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think they're going to either. And I think that last season in particular is going to affect their decision-making in that way because they saw what happens when guys push too hard, when guys have to play for too long of a stretch. They had a quick turnaround from the season before, and injuries really, really destroyed them. Was there something funny there?
Well, I just saw this guy's get mad because we haven't answered Rondo or Bazemore wearing number 9. It'll be Rondo because he'll get that number. That's been his number forever. So
right.
I think it'll be Rondo will get number 9. And then somebody said Kevin Love. Yeah, I mean, maybe. If I would assume if he gets bought out, right. Kevin Love is going there. But Kevin Love says he's not giving any money back, and he's owed $60 million. My guess is that one probably goes the Blake Griffin route. We've talked this before on other episodes of the show, but we can talk it again here on the live show. He probably will eventually go the Griffin route and say, all right, I don't want to keep wasting time here with this. A couple of people asked about Goran Dragic.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Doesn't sound like he's going to get bought out either. He doesn't want to give any money back, and Toronto doesn't want to move on from him yet. So I think it'll be. I think Dragic is probably going to stick in Toronto for a while. Maybe that could be one after the trade deadline, kind of thing. And no, IT's not going to be on this team either. Not after they got Rondo. There's just not a spot for him now.
Now I was looking, and look, when we talk about the Mavs, right? We went into detail on our preview review show on the Mavs and about how we didn't feel like they really did enough during the offseason. So if you're a Mavs fan, you're really hoping that Dragic does get bought out, and then because there's a ton of just smoke that Dragic to the Mavs if he gets bought out, but we haven't heard anything concrete about that actually happening. Yeah. So I understand why there's so much chatter about it, because Mavs fans right now are going, we need something, and it needs to be Dragic. Otherwise, what did we really accomplish in the offseason? Aside from some front office restructuring and things of that nature, and I do think that Reggie Bullock is a good player, but that's kind of the saving grace right now for the Mavs is Dragic gets bought out and joins them, and if that doesn't happen, then what?
Yeah, 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 he's not gonna do that now. I'll pull a couple more
Yeah.
hard cap teams. What happens if the team is way over the cap already when they get hard capped? If you do something to become hard capped, you then can't exceed the hard cap
You
even
can't
by
you
$1.
can't do
You can
that
go right
thing.
up to it, but
Right.
yeah. In the three ways you get hard capped are you acquire a player via sign and trade, and that's acquire, not trade one out.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Pincus will be happy with us for addressing that one. So that's acquiring a player. You use the biannual exception. That's any amount of the biannual exception, or you use an amount of the non-taxpayer mid-level exception that is greater than or equal to that of the taxpayer mid-level exception. The reason why those three things hard cap you is teams that are above the hard cap, which is also known as the tax apron, they cannot acquire a player via sign and trade. They get the smaller mid-level exception and they don't have the biannual exception. So that's why you get hard capped there. So if you now a team like the Warriors, they're way beyond the hard cap. They can't even see it anymore. Kind of like a fat guy in his feet. They can't see it anymore. So it is with the Warriors case though. They've not done any of the things to be hard capped, mostly because they can't
Yeah.
do any of those things because they've already been so far past it. So that's how the hard cap works. Then somebody else asked, I think Black Topaz 8. Maybe you answered this already. Does this mean the Lakers now have 10 extra million? Not the Lakers,
Not to
but
go
the
spend.
Bus family
Right.
has
Yes.
10 extra million because it's tax savings. This is not a salary cap savings or money that the Lakers can then turn around and go spend to sign somebody for 10 million or anything like that.
Yeah, and we've got people here in the chat that are mentioning the Lakers confirmed that the Marc Gasol trade is official. Yes, the Lakers just issued a press release saying that the Gasol trade is indeed done. I'm trying to see. It just says a future second round pick. It didn't say specifically which pick it was, but
we'll know in a day or so. That'll all come out here.
Yeah, not a surprise there.
Hey, there's a Celtics question.
Oh no,
can we do a Celtics?
Yeah,
question?
We can do a Celtics question.
Let's do that. Biggest need a reliable stretch for backup for Tatum. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure that's a huge need. I think between Hernan Gomez, Grant Williams, Jabari Parker, they'll figure that out. With that, I think right now it's reliable wing depth is probably my biggest concern on this team because they're still relying on Aaron Nesmith, Romeo Langford, a lot of kids right now, and they're going to play a lot of dual ball handler lineups off the bench with Peyton Pritchard and Dennis Schroeder together, is my guess. Not a lot of defense there, so they'll have to be kind of buoyed by some defensive guys. But yeah, I mean, maybe a stretch 4 is maybe the biggest need, just because they don't necessarily have a real good one right now, unless they slide Horford into that role, but that only works in a handful of matchups.
Yeah, I don't think he's quick enough to really play the floor, at least on the defensive end of the floor anyway. He's not going to chase around most forwards. And it's funny that now I'm saying chase around, 6 years ago, chase around a power forward was not a thing that we would talk about. But yeah, I don't think Horford's going to do that a ton. So I could see a need there for that. Yeah,
there's a few teams like New Orleans with Valanciunas and Zion. You could play Horford at the 4. Indiana, obviously, with Turner and Sabonis. That's maybe the biggest thing I got wrong this offseason. I was convinced they were going to split those two up, and that hasn't happened yet. Of course, you have Horford to play against Giannis. Julius Randle is another guy you would feel comfortable with him logging minutes at the 4. But if you're going up against like the Nets and KD's at the 4, you can't play Horford at the 4. It's just not going to work. Not at this point in his career.
Right. Absolutely. Paul Parinello from YouTube says, what an opening NFL game last night. Great game to start the season. Keith, I mentioned this one. How do you feel? Like, you're a Patriots fan. You like Brady. You live in Florida, but he's now with the Bucks. Where do you stand on Brady at this point and with the Bucks? Like, and did you watch the game last night?
Yeah, I watched most of it. I I'm not really ashamed to admit it, but I fell asleep um, before it was over. I like to go to bed early, so me covering the NBA on the East Coast is not necessarily a great match for that because I enjoy going to bed at like 10 o'clock at night when I can, and I do often in
Off
the
season.
off season.
Yeah.
But so I did fall asleep early, but I saw all the highlights and everything. As far as here's what I said last year about Brady, and I'll say it forever. We had 20 amazing years that I never could have dreamed of as a Patriots fan. As a kid, if we won 6 games, it was like, yeah, we're finally doing something.
Right.
We're headed in the right direction. And there was multiple years of my childhood when they were like the leading joke on the late night shows because they were going like 1-15 and things like that. So 20 years from the guy, I can't fault him. I was rooting for him all last season, especially once the Patriots season was over, and I'll continue to root for him. Through the rest of his career, unless they're playing the Patriots, then I'll be rooting against the Patriots with everything I have. And it's Mac Jones time, baby. Let's ride.
That's right. Let's see what Mac has, and let's see what Damian Harris can do for my fantasy teams here. I've got a basketball question here coming in. The new Harden rule: are the refs supposed to let it go or call an offensive foul on the shooter? How exactly? And so, just to say, it's not just one rule. There's a number of things. Like the refs are supposed to be watching for an offensive player that is dribbling and veers off their path to run into a defender, right? So.
Yep.
I'm not sure exactly how we're going to see this officiated. Are they going to start calling? I mean, like the leg kick thing has always been an offensive foul, but that's something that they're going to be watching for. But they're also going to be keeping an eye out for unnatural shooting motion. So a guy who gets a defender in the air, jumps and twists 3 feet to his right just to get a tiny bit of contact and then hurls the ball at the rim to say it was a shot. I don't know that they're going to call that an offensive foul if they're just going to let that go. That's a good question, and I don't really have an answer for how they're going to officiate that.
Yeah, the way it was kind of explained when the NBA went through it, and you can look it up on the NBA officials Twitter account. They went
Mm-hmm.
through some of this. It was probably close to a month ago now, but if you want to scroll through and find that, it was the way it was explained was what will happen is if it's a play that results in should result in a foul being called, meaning that there's contact, so like the leg kick that you mentioned,
Right.
Trevor,
Yeah.
that will be called or should be called an offensive foul. I don't want to say will, but let's just say it
Should
should
be.
be. If it's one where the defender runs out, they jump, but then the guy fully jumps into them, and it doesn't really impact the defender at all. But it's one that in the past might have been called for the shooter. It's that sounds like that'll be a no call, and then I think the dribbling in front of a guy, which generally results in two guys crashing into each other and somebody falls down, sounds like that should also now be an offensive
Right.
foul if it's there. So I have my doubts how much this is going to get if it enforced beyond, let's say, the holidays. We see these things all the time. There's point of emphasis, right? A couple years ago was contact to ball handlers. And then everybody was like, geesh, we're taking 5 million free throws every night. And these games are taking 3 hours. And then it slowly backed off and backed off.
Right.
And then pretty soon it was back to normal. So I think what they're going to do is it's going to have to be the real obvious ones, the ones where guys are jumping backwards into people and, fully, it's just not real basketball. Those ones are the ones that are going to get called. But, I said this the other day, James Harden, there's been a couple different points of emphasis designed around let's make Harden have to work, and you know what he does? He adjusts because he's a great player and he'll figure it out.
And I don't even know that this is like people call it the James Harden. I just think he's the biggest name that people think of. But to
Yeah.
me, this is more like I see a lot of this out of Trae Young.
Yep.
He's a guy who does this a lot. I mean, we could even say Chris Paul. He does the dribble in front of somebody and jump
Yeah,
back into
that
he,
is 100% the Chris Paul.
that is a
Yeah.
completely the Chris Paul move. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Rondo's
interested
pretty
to
good
see.
at that too. Unless
Rondo
his
will as
team's in the
well.
bonus, then he doesn't do it.
No, because he doesn't
Because
want to
he
go to
doesn't
the
wanna
line.
shoot free throws. Yeah.
I hope that this is consistently enforced because I can say that
Yeah.
from watching the Olympics, the officiating was not perfect in the Olympics by any means, but it was a breath of fresh air seeing that stuff
Yeah.
not work. And
And you know what? The best guys adjusted.
yes,
Durant, Tatum, Middleton, those guys all figured it out and they were fine. So yeah, the best players figured out. Hey, I like this question.
yeah,
Um, where I want to make sure I credit the right person. I lost it now. Oh, here it is. Marcus Steven from YouTube. Who do you give a higher offseason grade, Lakers or Nets? Please elaborate.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen that quite a bit. And maybe we'll have to combine the two. Well, I don't know. When we do our preview review show, we'll have to figure that out.
Yeah.
So when we look at the Nets, so they added what? They added Patty Mills, they added Paul
Paul
Millsap, LaMarcus
Millsap,
Aldridge
LaMarcus
coming
Aldridge,
back.
James Johnson,
Yep. And then the
John
Lakers,
Carter.
it's a whole new team, basically. It's LeBron,
Yeah.
AD, THT. I think that's it. Now that Gasol is gone. Is that it?
Yeah.
Wow.
That is it.
That really
Yep.
is it. It is a
Wow.
whole new team. Um, gosh, it's I think I'm going to give the edge to the Nets just because we've seen what it looks like, right? The changes that they've made are moves around the edges just to enhance what they've already got. Whereas the Lakers, it's a wholesale, almost the entire team out and a whole new squad in. And I don't know exactly what that's going to look like just yet. So I'm optimistic about the Lakers. I think I'm biased, of course, but I think I'm higher on them than some other people are in terms of their offseason moves. But again, I don't know what it looks like. And so I think I'm going to give the edge to the Nets for the time being until we know whether or not what the Lakers have done clicks. I think I give credit for the Lakers for going for it, for fulfilling their goal of landing a third star and bringing in Russell Westbrook and all of those things. But until we see what it looks like, I need to give the edge to the Nets for the time being.
Yeah, I think when we look at three stars against three stars, it to me it kind of comes down to where do you fall on Kyrie Irving against Russell Westbrook?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think Durant and Harden, Davis and James, that's basically equal in my mind. Durant is better than Davis, James is better than Harden, but they're all, I mean, that's four of the top 10 players in the league.
Right.
If you got those four guys, one of those four guys out of the top 10, let me hear it because it seems crazy to me. So then it comes down to who do you feel better about, Irving or Westbrook? And there's problems with both guys there.
Yeah.
I think if you're evaluating those two teams against each other, but offseason moves against offseason moves, I think I feel a little more certain that the Nets offseason moves are going to work out fine with very little worry. With the Lakers, there's just a lot more uncertainty in their moves. But I think all due respect to Milwaukee, Phoenix, and a handful of other teams, if the Nets don't win the championship, it's a major disappointment. And if the Lakers aren't right there to either against them in the finals or really close to making it to the finals, it's a disappointment. I could even see the people who say, hey, it's a disappointment if the Lakers don't win too.
Mm-hmm.
I can't argue too hard against that either.
Correct. Yeah.
Yep.
People are saying, Trevor, your answer was too rational. Sorry, that's that's me. that's the way I am. And I know I've got Lakers fans mad at me because I've said right now I have the Nets ahead of the Lakers, but that's just, again, me trying to be objective until we see what the Lakers have. Keith, there's a little bit of news that just came out that you and I are both interested in anyway. U.S. men's national team and U.S. women's national team soccer for the future. English language rights holders, ESPN and Fox Sports, are now not the favorites to land the next contract. Instead, it's going to be CBS, Amazon, and Turner Sports. And I mentioned that because Amazon, we just saw where the recent game, U.S. men's national team against Honduras, was on Paramount Plus. It was on a streaming service. I mean, that was, I wound up watching the Spanish version.
As did I. Yeah.
And
until I fell asleep.
Yeah. And we saw this happen with USA basketball as well, where it got hidden away on a streaming service. I don't like that.
Yeah,
push.
I don't love that.
I'm not a fan of that.
I can very selfishly say if it's a streaming service I have, then I'm fine with it.
Right.
But but yeah, it's like I ended up getting Peacock, which I was going to do anyway, for the Olympics to make sure I could see everything I wanted to see. Even then, it was still impossible to find stuff. And I say this as a former employee of NBC Sports, but it was it was really hard. And then it was I was going to get it for the Premier League anyway.
Right.
So I just got it early. So if it's Peacock that gets it, okay. If it's Amazon that gets it, I have Amazon Prime. If it's something else, yeah, now I start to struggle a little bit. Yeah, these games should be on easy to find
They should.
channels that everybody has, ESPN, Fox, whoever, and let's just go with that. So, but
Agreed.
alas, here we are.
Agreed. And I'm
Let's
not a fan
see.
of the cable situation to begin with, where you're stuck into like getting all these channels you don't need and all that kind
Hmm.
of stuff. I'm a
Yeah,
proponent of all that, but it should be accessible to
yeah,
everybody, particularly in a country that is trying to grow the game of soccer. Sorry, that is our random
presumably.
soccer aside there.
No, we like it. Miami Heat did a few camp signings today. Micah Potter, Javante
Oh,
Smart,
okay.
and Drew Smith. Camp signings. So those guys will all be camp guys that'll ultimately be waived sometime later. So yeah.
Here's
How
here's
about
a
this?
and
This is a non basketball. I just lost it. Never
oh,
mind. I'll
okay.
see if I can find it.
I've got one here
Go ahead.
that's streaming related. Random thought, I want the NBA app to stream games live for free like the NFL app. That would be I don't and I haven't
Does
used
the
the
NFL
NBA
app do
app.
that?
I'm not sure. I know MLB
Yeah, I don't
does.
know.
MLB will do like
Okay.
a game of the day,
Oh, like one game. Yeah.
one game. And so I would like to see that from the NBA as well. I think that would be really cool. Now I do League Pass so I can see all the games, right?
Yeah.
But I think that would be really cool for the people that don't want to, spend all the money on League Pass just to have one game each day be accessible on the NBA app. I think it's good just to get the product out there more.
Yeah, I don't hate that idea. I think that would be a good idea.
Hmm.
There, I like to I would so I have DirecTV. Primarily I have DirecTV because of Sunday Ticket, so that I can watch the Patriots without having to
Hmm.
go find a sports bar or go to the ESPN club here, Disney, and those kind of things. So I like having it for that reason. So I get League Pass through DirecTV. What I wish they would do on DirecTV, I don't know, maybe people who have DirecTV know this, but they do for football and baseball, they do a thing called Game Mix where you can watch up to 8 games at once. They
Oh,
split your TV into 8 little
yeah.
channels and you can flick the volume between which game. And then when there's only like 4 games on and then 2 games, they make them slightly bigger screens. I want that for the NBA because I would like to be able to. Now, people are like, how do you follow that many games? I would just like to be able to have them all on one screen
Hmm.
and then watch whatever game I'm primarily watching on another, and then be like, oh wow, it's close with 5 minutes left. Let me flip over there because what I end up doing is I have the scoreboard app up. I have the hit or miss league pass app
Yes.
running where you
Right.
can split into multiple screens and those things. But yeah, I would like that.
Yeah, I do the digital version of League Pass and then stream it. And that's what I do a lot is I'll split. I think they do four. They'll let me do four.
Yeah. So yeah, and I've heard people say that too, that you can
Yeah.
put a bunch of games up and stuff. Where do you think the Celtics will land this year in the Eastern Conference? Yeah, I don't know if the Dogs are going to come in or not. They're being a little wild. I can hear them out there playing and getting a little crazy. The little guy Tatum is starting to feel himself a little, and
Uh-oh.
he climbs all over our older dog, and he does not like it. He is 12 and old and cranky, and does not want to deal with the puppy very much. So, but the question, where do I think the Celtics will finish? I'll give you my full answer on that when we do the Celtics review
Hmm.
preview. I think they could finish as high as fourth in the East, and I think they could finish as low as seventh in the East. I think they'll be definitely in the play, and I can't see them missing the play-in tournament. And I do all these things with a assuming a modicum of health. I don't go, crazy with, well, if, Tatum and Brown both end up out for the season, well, then they're going to be terrible. But, let's assume they're going to be there. So, yeah, I would say, as high as fourth. They're not on Brooklyn's tier, Milwaukee's tier. Philly, Atlanta, maybe. We'll see. So I guess maybe they could get to third. I'll be quite honest. I haven't fully thought it through yet because I haven't had to prep for that show yet. So maybe third as I'm doing this on the fly here, but they're definitely behind Brooklyn and my Milwaukee, probably behind Philly, Atlanta,
Yeah.
Miami. We'll see.
There's a clear tier break in the East. It's Milwaukee,
Yeah, big
Brooklyn, and
time.
then everyone else, right? And the
Yep.
Celtics could be in that mix of everyone else, and they could
Yep.
wind up three. They could wind up more at the bottom of that, but I think they're a
Yep.
playoff team. I think they're a playoff
And
team.
then everyone else, group is pretty big
It
because it's
is.
basically everybody who's not Orlando, Detroit, and Cleveland.
Yep.
You could talk me into any one of those teams being pretty good, and I'm probably gonna go along with it.
I've got people asking about DeMarcus Cousins. Boogie, do you think is he done? Do we think he's done in the NBA, or is he going to
Yeah.
land somewhere?
Hmm.
I feel like he showed enough to where he can play. The question is finding
Yeah.
a team that needs what he can do, which in the modern NBA, less and less teams are really looking for slow foot. I mean, and I feel bad. Like I don't want to disparage him
Yeah.
or anything, but he's not that quick in
Yeah.
terms of lateral quickness. So switching defense is really hard with him on the floor. So I don't know how many teams that are really clamoring for what he can do. He can shoot the three, and that helps. But yeah,
I will say he still has a place. I was impressed with his time with the Clippers that
hmm
he took on a lesser role and wasn't any kind of problem there. He was very clear, I think, I'm back in the um, back in the NBA and I'm on a good team and I'm in LA and all those things. So yeah, he'll reemerge at some point. He seems like a guy though, as long as he can keep himself in shape, that is a guy who's probably going to join up with a team January, February versus
hmm
being there because I just don't know how much you need him. It's Slim Hardaway, I like that name. Just said King's Boogie Cousins was just different. Yeah, and
yes,
it's unfortunate that he was on absolutely awful teams for so many years in Sacramento, and then just man when he was finally like with New Orleans and was really starting to look like
yeah.
something, then he blew out his
Well,
Achilles.
how crazy is so? And yeah, I mean on paper, the Davis Boogie pairing was going to be just monstrous, and we saw some glimpses of it. But
Sure.
how crazy is it? So he was eligible for a super max, right? He was looking at
Yep.
it was like 230 million. It was something I don't remember exactly
Yeah, it
what the
was a
super
big
max was
number.
at that
Yeah.
point, but he was eligible for the super max. The Kings didn't want to pay the super max, so they trade him. He's still going to get a big payday, not super max big anymore because he can't from the Pelicans. And then the injuries start. I mean,
Yep.
what a quick change from hundreds of millions of dollars to
Yeah.
much, 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 much less for Boogie
Well, and now
Cousins.
he's now on the wrong side of 30 because
hmm
now he's just turned 31 about a month ago. So yeah, that's tough. But I mean, he was okay in Houston. He didn't shoot it well in Houston. He really it was all jumpers in Houston. But then when he went to the Clippers, he was working more inside. He looked like he was in better shape
hmm
with the Clippers too, which might have been partially motivated by, hey, this team's good, and if I want to do anything to contribute here. So yeah, I mean, let's see. He had one really good playoff game, right? I
Boogie,
I feel like I remember that.
I
With
believe
the
so.
Clippers, let me look. I'm
He
pulling
had
up his
yeah,
game log
take
now.
a look at it, but he had moments where I thought, wow, he's got something left. Like there's some juice there. Like he didn't look like he was completely done, right?
Yeah, it was game 6 and 7. He was actually pretty good against Phoenix. He was really good in game 6 when they forced the game 7, 15 points off the bench in 11 minutes.
I think a lot of people remember like their lasting memory of Boogie from that playoff series was him maybe being out of position defending that Jay Crowder
Yeah.
inbounds that turned
Yeah.
into the game winning play there, which was an amazing amazing play. That dunk from Aiton was incredible, one of the
Yeah.
best plays of the season. But unfortunately, I think our perception of Boogie might be a little bit tainted by that, where we look at him in more of a negative light just because that was kind of the last thing that we really saw from him.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah. It's if he's your third big, you're good.
Yeah.
I think you're okay with him. That's why I could maybe see the Lakers going for him. I would probably go for Hardenstein instead.
hmm
But they don't have a big with stretch ability, so maybe they just wait and see if somebody pops free there. Somebody asked if Horford's going to start for the Celtics. I tend to think he will. I know they liked, at least under Brad Stevens, they liked bringing Robert Williams off the bench because you can control his minutes a little bit more that way. Also with Williams, he tends to get hurt anytime his minutes start to approach 30 minutes a night. So, yeah, I think there's a good chance Horford starts, and he looked pretty good with OKC. this year. He looked like he had enough left in the tank. He looked healthy again, so hopefully there. What do you think about signing for the Lakers signing Cassius Stanley over James Ennis? No,
Yeah.
it's not. There's not right now. There's not a place for development players on this Lakers team. You want veteran depth that can step right in if somebody's out. You're not trying to develop a bunch of young guys. You're trying to win a championship in the next 2 years. That's you've given yourself this little window to go get it done and go from there. So yeah, I'd rather go with the vets.
Slim Hardaway here with a good question. Anything my Rockets can do with John Wall, or is it best we keep him until a team needs him at the deadline? I think it's the latter there. You hang on to him.
Well,
it's
you keep him, but it's not because the team needs.
It's not because no, but
yeah.
But here's the best case scenario for the Rockets with John Wall is a Chris Paul situation, ironically, right? Yep. It's a Chris Paul situation where he comes out, he plays better than people expected, and teams start to go, oh, okay, maybe he's still got something left, and you can put together some type of a trade, and you actually get something in return. That's the best case scenario here with John Wall. He's not a long-term piece on the team, but if he can have 80% of what Chris Paul did in OKC, maybe that's enough to generate a little bit of interest, depending, obviously the contract is huge, so it's hard to move that. But I think that's the best case scenario from the Rockets' perspective.
I think it is far more likely he plays a little bit and then it goes the Blake Griffin route. And there's some kind of buyout that gets worked, and that allows him to go join a better team that needs a point guard maybe. But yeah, that one kills me too, because I was a big John Wall fan when he was, there was a point in time where there was no one in the league who could touch him with the ball in his hands, how fast he was. And he's just not that guy anymore. He's never become a good enough shooter to offset that loss and speed and explosion. So that's been the tough part. A little bit of a weird roster in Houston right now. Because you've got Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr., who are presumably kind of your backcourt of the future there. And are they? You've got John Wall, Eric Gordon, DJ Augustin. You've got a bunch of guys veteran guys who are probably going to play for no other reason to show, hey, these guys have something left. Anybody interested? But yeah, that's the unfortunate thing with John Wall. I just think they're going to have to wait that contract out until he's ready to do a buyout.
Yeah, exactly. That's where they're at, most likely. Let's do, well, somebody said the Lakers signed 2 vets. I know Jared Dudley's pissed. Yeah, so Dudley had these comments about how the Lakers were making a mistake, going younger with their final 2 spots, and then they signed DeAndre Jordan. And that's not all that. Well, I guess he's younger than Jared Dudley, right? And Rondo was the other signing, which, again, younger than Dudley, but still. Keith, we're at
question.
Go ahead.
Sorry, just what did it mean that we got a player's draft rights in the Gasol trade? Essentially, we already covered this. Wang Jailin is not going to come over to the NBA probably at any point, but it basically means that the Lakers have his draft rights. They control it. If he does want to come over, he's going to have to come over for the Lakers at this point. But he's 27. He's been playing in China for about 9 years now, so he's not coming over at any point. Mike Scott, maybe. I don't know. I don't really like that move for the Lakers. And then any Spurs news? They're over the limit. Yeah, the Spurs are going to have to eat a couple guaranteed contracts. My guess is one for sure will be Al-Farouq Aminu. He doesn't really have a place on that roster. And then I don't know who the other one will be. Maybe they can make a trade. It's not like the NFL where there's a lot of training camp trades at the end of the camp season where guys get moved off. But they might just eat Keita Bates-Diop. They gave him a fully guaranteed deal, and that's kind of the Spurs way. If you've done good by us, we'll take care of you and give you a little bit of guaranteed money. Clearly, they're nowhere near the tax, so why not? It's not going to hurt them.
Right, exactly. Somebody asked, Austin Reeves and Mac McClung look good. Do you think they'll get any playing time this year? No. I mean, look, Mac McClung is on an Exhibit 10 deal, so he isn't even guaranteed a roster spot. Austin Reeves is
he's going to South Bay.
Yeah, and Austin Reeves is on a 2-way contract. But again, I mean, the Lakers are a veteran win-now team. The people have talked about their depth. If they really suffer a lot of injuries, maybe break glass in case of emergency, Austin Reeves. And I liked what we saw in Austin Reeves in the summer league, but I don't think there was a lot about his game where I went, put him against NBA level
Mm-hmm.
competition right now. I think he's very talented, and I think he needs time to develop, but that he looked more to me like a guy who needs a little bit of time with the South Bay Lakers before
Yep.
you can start giving him minutes anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean he's clearly the fourth point guard too, behind Westbrook, Rondo, and Nunn.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lakers, because of the presence of LeBron, you can get away with playing a non-ball handler at the point guard spot, as long as they can defend the position. So you could do that with Monk or
None.
Bazemore or Ellington, and get away with it that way if you really needed to. There, so Reeves, it's just an uphill battle to find playing time for him, and I actually think he wasn't great in summer league, but I think just based on his profile, Joel Ayayi
Mm-hmm.
has a better chance of playing just because I think he's more ready to defend at an NBA level. And I know Frank Vogel is always going to pick the guy who's ready to defend over somebody who's not. So, it's just those guys aren't going to play. I mean, if you want to see them play, tune in when NBA TV is showing a G League game because that's where they're going to be playing.
Yes.
And Mac McClung, I mean, this kid was a super high prospect. So sometimes those guys pan out in the G League. Sometimes they get there and they pop, and maybe they'll figure something out and it'll look pretty good.
You never know.
We'll
Keith, we are
Yeah, I
just
have
about
my
at
notes.
the hour mark right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what's coming before we call it here.
Yeah,
Because
let's do it.
we mentioned that we were going to say that like an hour ago almost. We said that we were going to talk a little bit about what's coming up next. So do you want to fill everybody in with what we're going to be doing during the regular season?
Yeah, so what we're going to do, guys, and this is very much experiment time, and where we're going to try some stuff. But what Trevor and I are going to do is we're going to come to you Monday through Friday, every day. We're still working out timing, but it'll be consistent-ish time every day. We both do have families, and sometimes that causes us to have to run parent-teacher conferences or whatever,
like that, yep.
Has to happen there. But what we're going to do is we're going to bring you a recap show of the previous night's NBA action, and we're going to bring that to you. And the idea is it'll be a quick hit show. It'll probably be less than 30 minutes, and we're going to get into the previous night. Yeah, I know.
every time we say, oh, this will be a quick show. 40 minutes later, we're like, how did that happen? So, but yes, that will be the goal.
But this one, we are going to try to really put a time limit on it. If it was a night where there was, 13 games, maybe we'll take a little bit more time. But what we're going to do is we're going to come to you. We're going to recap the previous night's games with that. And we'll pick like a player of the night and have some fun with it and do some fun things with that. We're probably going to do some of those shows live as well here. So it can be an interactive component. If you guys were going, we'll let you know what we were watching last night. Clearly, if it was a Lakers game, Trevor will be on the Lakers game. I will have been on a Celtics game because that's what our commitments there entail. But we'll make sure we're checking in on the rest of the league and able to talk about it. So we will be doing that Monday through Friday. But in addition to that, we will come to you with extra shows during the week, which will be a little bit more of what you're used to here, where we talk transactions and news and injury updates and all those sort of things. So we're going to try some different things with the channel, have some fun. So we're pretty excited to give this a shot and see how it works. And if there's a massive game on a Saturday night or a Friday or Saturday night, we might come to you real quick with that. So Mike Wolf says we deserve to get drunk so we can celebrate 10K.
Hey,
that's
already in the plans. That's in the
that's in the plans for you. I have to be up early for soccer tomorrow, so I will not be getting drunk tonight, but I will go. Need a wine show? That I'm out. I can't help you there. I'm a little disappointed we didn't get a single Marvel question. I thought we'd get some MCU questions.
We did,
but
that's okay.
We didn't, but that's okay. We'll get to it. You know what you need to make time to do in celebration of 10K? See Black Widow and Shang-Chi, please. So then we can talk about it. Because I'm tired of not being able to talk about that.
So my wife and daughter just went out of town on a girls trip this morning, and so now I've got the weekend. And Sunday I've got blocked out to watch football, but I've got a little bit of time. I know I'm going to do some stuff for Lakers Nation tonight, but I've got some time, so I'm definitely going to be checking that
double
out.
header.
I will grab a frosty cold Dr. Pepper and watch some Marvel movies. I think that sounds like a good evening.
Perfect. It's always a good time. Yeah, Shang-Chi was amazing.
Okay.
I loved it. It was really, really good.
And,
but guys, go ahead.
I was gonna say I do want to just kind of specify. So with us doing that recap show, that is not in place of any of the other shows. Those are
Nope.
still coming. I know you mentioned it, but I just want to make sure everybody's clear. Like
Yep.
we're not suddenly turning this into an NBA recap show. We're just providing that in
Nope.
addition to everything else we're doing
Yep.
because we want to be able to nerd out a little bit more about NBA basketball and talk about all the games from the previous night. So that'll be coming the next day after games, Monday through Friday. We'll be doing that in the mornings, and we'll get together and we can talk basketball, and then we'll still be doing all the transactional stuff right here on the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. So again, even more reason to subscribe and turn on those notifications, because when we do the live shows, you'll get notified when we go live.
Absolutely. You'll be able to jump in here and participate with us. Maybe we'll even do polls like, here are the top 3 players of the night, who should get player of the night, and those kind of things. So we're gonna have some fun with it. We're gonna figure it out as it goes, what works, what doesn't work, and go from there. But we're really excited to do that. And we can't thank you all enough for getting us to 10K. We're beyond 10K now, which is huge. So we're super excited about that. But yeah, we're you know, really happy to be doing all this, and you'll be being here with you guys on a more regular basis. So yeah, and Slim Hardaway, that's our guy. Tell your friends about this channel; they might learn something. So we are we will let you know. Yes, and Smiley Jogger, we will tweet when we go live.
Yes, we will.
In the mornings, especially until we catch a real good rhythm with that. So
that's right.
So we'll see. But guys, thank you so much. I'm gonna go have dinner and hang out with the family before a long weekend of soccer here in the Smith house, and Trevor's going to go watch Marvel movies.
That's right. That's the plan. And again, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. 10,000. Here's to the next 10,000. Everybody have a great weekend. Till next time, stay safe and see you.